In 1927, a boxing trainer in Chicago noticed something strange about his most dangerous fighter. Outside the ring, the man was almost unervingly gentle, quiet, polite, the kind of person who apologized if he bumped into a stranger on the street. But the moment the bell rang, something else took over completely. Total control, total precision, total violence, aimed with surgical accuracy at exactly one target, for exactly the time allowed, and not 1 second longer. The trainer asked him once how he did it, how a man that calm could turn into that, on command, and then turn back. The fighter said something the trainer never forgot. He said he wasn't holding the anger back all week so it could explode on fight night. He was saving it, feeding it, aiming it. The ring wasn't where his aggression escaped. It was the one place he'd built specifically to use it. Friedrich Nietzsche never met that fighter. But 4 decades earlier, he'd already written the exact philosophy behind what that man had discovered on his own. That aggression isn't something a strong person eliminates. It's something a strong person learns deliberately to aim. If this is your first time here, before we go further, hit subscribe, tap that bell icon, and drop a like because this channel is building a full series unpacking Nietzsche's ideas, and this one gets uncomfortably personal. Here's the question this video is built around. What if the anger you've spent years trying to suppress, manage, or feel guilty about was never actually the problem? And the real problem was that no one ever taught you what to do with it instead. Let's start with what most people are taught to do with aggression, because it's almost universal across modern life. Suppress it. Swallow it. Be nice. Be calm. Be agreeable. From childhood onward, most people absorb the message that anger, competitiveness, and the raw desire to dominate or win are shameful impulses, things to apologize for, medicate, or bury as deep as possible so nobody has to witness them. Nietzsche believed this suppression doesn't actually eliminate the instinct. It just changes its target. He argued that an aggressive instinct denied any honest, external outlet inevitably turns inward. And he gave this internal turn a specific name. He called it the internalization of man, and he considered it one of the most significant and most dangerous developments in human psychology. Here's what that actually looks like in practice. The competitive drive that never gets a legitimate outlet doesn't vanish. It becomes self-criticism, relentless and cruel, aimed at the only remaining target available, yourself. The aggression that never gets expressed outward becomes anxiety, becomes resentment that leaks out sideways in passive-aggressive comments and quiet grudges, becomes a low-grade hostility toward your own body, your own choices, your own worth. Nietzsche believed that an enormous amount of what we now call self-hatred, chronic guilt, and even depression is aggression that had nowhere honest to go, and so it turned around and started attacking the person carrying it instead. This is the trap. Suppress your aggression, and it doesn't disappear, it just changes address and moves in permanently, right inside your own head. So if suppression isn't the answer, what is? Nietzsche's answer wasn't unleash it recklessly either. He had no interest in simple release for its own sake, screaming, punching walls, venting without direction. He believed venting without transformation just reinforces the pattern, teaches the instinct that explosion is the only available outlet, and leaves you exactly as untrained as before the next time pressure builds. His actual answer was a concept he called sublimation, a term he borrowed from chemistry, where a solid transforms directly into a gas without ever passing through a liquid stage. Applied to psychology, Nietzsche meant something precise. Aggression isn't something to eliminate or something to release unfiltered. It's raw energy, and raw energy can be redirected deliberately into a completely different form, one that builds rather than destroys. He believed this is, in fact, the actual origin of most human greatness. Nietzsche argued that art, philosophy, ambition, discipline, even the drive to master a craft, are aggression that has been successfully redirected rather than suppressed or wasted. The instinct that might have once expressed itself as violence gets rerouted into the discipline required to master an instrument, build a business, win a genuine competition, or finish a difficult, demanding piece of work. Same underlying energy, completely different destination. This reframes the entire question most people are asking about their own anger. The question was never, how do I get rid of this feeling? Nietzsche believed that's the wrong question entirely, because the feeling itself isn't the enemy. It's simply raw, undirected force, no different in principle from any other kind of energy. The actual question is, where is this energy currently going, and where could it go instead? So what does this actually look like practically in a life? The first step is honest recognition, and this is where most people fail before they even begin. You cannot redirect an instinct you refuse to admit you're feeling. Nietzsche had deep contempt for what he considered a very specific kind of dishonesty. People who convince themselves they feel no anger, no competitiveness, no aggression at all, because they've been taught these feelings are shameful. He believed this denial doesn't make someone more peaceful. It makes them more dangerous, because an instinct you refuse to acknowledge is an instinct you cannot direct. It simply runs on autopilot, usually toward the worst possible target, precisely because nobody is steering it consciously. The second step is finding legitimate resistance to push against. Nietzsche believed aggression needs somewhere real to go, and the healthiest destinations are almost always found in genuine challenge. Physical training that demands real effort, competitive pursuits with actual stakes, difficult creative work that fights back against you the entire time you're making it, ambitious goals that require real struggle to reach. This isn't a coincidence. These outlets work specifically because they demand exactly the kind of intensity that aggression naturally produces. You're not suppressing the fire. You're pointing it at something that can actually use the heat. The third step is applying that same energy to internal resistance rather than only external opponents. Nietzsche's concept of self-overcoming is, in many ways, aggression turned toward the most productive possible target, your own limitations. The discipline required to break a bad habit, to push through the resistance of a difficult project, to hold yourself to a standard nobody else is enforcing. This requires real force, real intensity, the exact same raw material that might otherwise have shown up as cruelty toward yourself or hostility toward other people. Redirected deliberately, it becomes the engine of genuine self-improvement instead. The fourth step is understanding that sublimation isn't a one-time fix. It's an ongoing practice, something you have to keep doing, because the instinct doesn't disappear once you've redirected it successfully one time. It regenerates. Nietzsche believed a person who has genuinely mastered this process isn't someone who no longer feels aggression. It's someone who has built a reliable, repeatable channel for it, so that every time the instinct rises, there's already somewhere productive for it to go, rather than a backlog building up until it eventually breaks out sideways. Here's what makes this idea genuinely different from most modern advice about anger management. The typical approach treats aggression as a problem to be minimized, calmed, or eliminated. Nietzsche treated it as raw fuel, dangerous if left uncontrolled, but genuinely valuable if properly channeled. He wasn't interested in producing calm, passive people. He was interested in producing powerful people who had simply learned to aim that power somewhere it could actually build something, rather than somewhere it would only leave wreckage. This also explains something Nietzsche noticed about history's most driven, most accomplished individuals, that an unusual number of them describe an intense, almost restless internal pressure, something that felt, in their own words, close to anger or hunger, that they eventually learned to pour directly into their work. Not because they were unusually violent people, because they'd found, whether deliberately or by accident, exactly the redirection Nietzsche was describing, a legitimate target large enough, demanding enough to absorb everything that intensity had to offer. So here's the question worth sitting with. Where has your own aggression actually been going? Has it been suppressed until it turned inward, showing up as self-criticism you've mistaken for humility, or resentment you've mistaken for simply having a short temper? Or has it been given somewhere real to go? A genuine challenge, a real ambition, a piece of work demanding enough to actually use the force you're carrying? Nietzsche never asked anyone to become calmer, gentler, or less intense. He asked something harder. He asked people to stop being ashamed of their own intensity and start becoming responsible for where they aimed it. If this video gave you something worth thinking about, make sure you're subscribed with the bell turned on, because the next one goes even deeper into exactly how Nietzsche believed our darkest instincts can become our greatest source of power, and you won't want to miss it.